All right. Hi, everybody. Matt Bove here. Free agency is upon us. We are only I don't know, a week and a half away. The legal tampering period starts on March 9th. That basically just means that's going to be the day when NFL teams can start agreeing to deals with free agents. They can't officially sign anybody for 2 days, but at 12:05 on March 9th, we're going to start to see news of, hey, this team has agreed to a 3-year, $24 million deal with insert player here. Interesting how that all happens. Long story short, we're close to the start of free agency. And for the Buffalo Bills, I think this is going to be as active of a free agent window as we have seen in a long time because of the Jim Leonard addition to the defense, because there's a lot of players who I think they're going to let walk, and mainly just because I actually think they're going to put themselves in a position where they have some spending money. We are recording this on February 26th. Right now, I still believe the Bills are slightly over the salary cap, and that's with a restructure to Spencer Brown. But I think there's more levers and buttons that they can press that will give them more spending money. And then ultimately, they'll use that money to target some of the players, or I think some of the players that I'm going to list right now. I understand from a video standpoint, this isn't going to be the most interesting thing. I literally wrote an article for our website, go check it out, where I have a better kind of detailed explanation of all of these players. But I wanted to give you a video version if you're somebody who's just going to kind of scrolling through things, or maybe you're watching on YouTube. The first name on the list is one of the more polarizing names on the list. It is wide receiver Mike Evans. This is a guy who is going to the Hall of Fame. This is a guy who has played his entire career in one place, in Tampa Bay. And there are a lot of people who think this is a bad idea. And I very much disagree with all of those people. I think if there's a chance to get Mike Evans away from Tampa Bay, the Bills have to be very interested in a short-term deal. There are a lot of layers to this, but I'll start with this. I think signing Mike Evans also allows you to address the position substantially in the draft, which is a good thing, because I do think the Bills need to get the future of that position into that room. But I think Mike Evans would be the perfect guy to come in here, teach everybody else what he knows, and I also still think he can produce. One of the other things that has been brought up a lot with Mike Evans is he's always hurt. That's nonsense. He was hurt last year. He is not always hurt, and he was still a really, really productive player when he played the majority of the season, which was just 2 years ago. This is somebody who can play, of course, on the boundary. This is somebody who can be a weapon in the red zone. The Bills need players like that, and I think Mike Evans would be a no-brainer. I also think on a shorter-term deal, it's not as big of a risk. Yeah, you'd probably have to give him a lot of money, $15, $20 million for the season. But if you could do it for 1 or 2 years, I don't think you're gambling that much. I think you're taking a player who is proven to have success in this league, and you put him in your offense and you see what he can bring. Now, the other name here, there's 2 more wide receivers that I have on my list. Alec Pierce is a really fun name to talk about. I don't even know if we'll get to the point that he is available, because it seems like the Colts want to keep him, but the Colts also want to sign Daniel Jones. So then they've got a decision to make with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. And if Michael Pittman becomes available, he's another player who I would have on this list. But as of right now, he is not. Alec Pierce is only 25 years old. Last year, he had more than 1,000 receiving yards, and he did it on 47 catches. There's a joke if you're watching a Colts game of like, all right, Alec Pierce is down there somewhere, just chuck it up. And it felt like a lot of times that ultimately worked out. I think of a player who is so much of a deep threat pairing with Josh Allen, and I think that could be a very lethal combination, still just 25 years old. Here's the thing about Alec Pierce. There will be people who are out there who are like, oh, I love the Alec Pierce idea. Let's see if the Bills can sign him to a 4-year, $50 million. It's not even close. Alec Pierce is probably getting $25 million a year. So if you're talking about a contract for 4 years, you're looking at $100 million. That is a substantial commitment, but I think he's a really good player, and he's probably, besides George Pickens, who I don't think is going to be available, kind of the belle of the ball when it comes to wide receivers. Then the not nearly as fun, but probably more realistic name I have is Romeo Doubs from the Green Bay Packers. Felt like every time I watched the Packers play, he was somebody who was making a play, still just 25 years old, relatively speaking, a target monster. I think he had like 85 targets last year, which doesn't seem like a ton, but the leader for the Bills last year in targets was Shakir with 95, and it felt like they were throwing him screen passes like 8 times a game. So it shows you kind of like, hey, he's at least in that wheelhouse. The thing about Romeo Doubs, boundary player, and the Bills need somebody to be a boundary player. I like that addition, or I would like that addition if they make it. Okay. Blast from the past, Wyatt Teller is another name that I think we need to be paying attention to. And the reason I say this is because I do not anticipate the Bills being able to keep David Edwards. I think he's going to get a lot of money. I think Wyatt Teller might be one of those veteran players who gets less money than we anticipate. And I know he's got a relationship with Josh Allen. I know he was always the one that got away. It feels like this would be the way for the Bills to understand that there might be a small step back from David Edwards to Wyatt Teller, but it's not as much of a roll the dice as maybe putting Alec Anderson there or drafting somebody who is an unproven commodity. I mean, Wyatt Teller's 31, so I understand this is probably only a short-term thing, but I still think Wyatt Teller has some good football left in him. All right, switch to the defense now. There's going to be a theme with some of these names. John Franklin Myers, defensive end / defensive tackle, whatever you want to call him, from the Denver Broncos last year, somewhere where Jim Leonard was. That's the common theme. Jim Leonard is looking to build his defense, and I could see him trying to go into the well with players who he has familiarity with, and John Franklin Myers is one of those players. He's probably a name that sounds more familiar to Bills fans than you realize just because he was with the Jets for several years. Then he goes to Denver. Last year he had 7.5 sacks. He's 29 years old. He is going to be somebody who gets a nice amount of money. So there's the Jim Leonard connection for John Franklin Myers. Maybe my favorite name to talk about on this entire list is Leo Chenal, the linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Jim Leonard has a connection to him from their time together at Wisconsin when Wisconsin had one of the best defenses in all of college football. At one point, they did actually have the best defense in all of college football. 25 years old. I do not think will be crazy expensive, very good at stopping the run, and the Bills need linebackers. Here's the thing. Is durability going to become a concern for a player who would probably be asked to do a ton? And what is the money going to look like? Because if you look at some of the different valuations out there, talking about a guy who's going to probably only get paid like $5 million a year. I don't think that's accurate. I think people will fall in love with the age and the potential, and they'll give him substantially more than that. It's how high would the Bills be willing to go? The next name on the list is the most recognizable name on the list. Well, maybe not more than Mike Evans, but still, you get it. Trey Hendrickson, defensive end, 31 years old. 2 years ago was an All-Pro. I think finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He had 17.5 sacks. Then last year happened. There was the contract stuff before the season. Then there was an injury that kind of cost him his entire year. He played 7 games. He had 4 sacks. This is the most boom or bust name on the list because if you're going to sign Trey Hendrickson, that comes probably with a $30 million price tag per season. So you can go 2 ways here. You can say the Bills wouldn't do that because Von Miller burns them when they signed a pass rusher later on in their career. Or you could say, but that was going really well until he got injured, and he was 2 years older than what Trey Hendrickson is right now. When the Bills signed Von Miller, he was 33. Trey Hendrickson is 31. So conceivably, you would get more years out of Trey Hendrickson than you ever got out of Von Miller. And once again, I know the Von Miller contract was a disaster, but it wasn't until he got hurt. In the 11 games that he played in his first season, he was really effective for the Bills, and then he got hurt on Thanksgiving in Detroit, and it all went downhill from there. I like the Trey Hendrickson idea. I understand there is a lot of risk that comes with it. This would be the biggest thing that they do all offseason, but I think it would provide you with some much-needed juice as far as pass rushing is concerned. And all of a sudden you feel a lot better about the unit if you have a player like this who immediately walks in the door and becomes your most feared pass rusher. They don't have anybody even close to this right now. Greg Rousseau's a really good player, but Trey Hendrickson has the potential of 17.5 sacks in a season, which is double anything that Greg Rousseau has done. So, I mean, there's something there. All right. Boye Mafe. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Linebacker when listed for his official position, but to me, I think of it more as an edge rusher. If the name sounds familiar, it's because you were watching him a couple weeks ago play in the Super Bowl on the Seattle Seahawks defense. And he's not the first or second or even third name you think about when you think about the Seahawks defense, but he played a role. He's 27 years old. Once again, we're talking about a versatile pass rusher who's probably going to get a lot of money from somewhere. I think his sophomore year, he had 9 sacks, and then the number has dipped since then, but he is still getting pressures. That's something that's very valuable. You always look at, when you're looking at pass rushers, you look at what is their pass rush win rate, what is their pressure rate? Those are probably the numbers that are more telling than even just getting sacks. He gets pressures. He wins snaps, but he hasn't been getting to the quarterback. So it kind of depends on how teams value him, because somebody is probably going to say 27-year-old edge rusher who is a key piece to a Super Bowl winning defense, they're going to give him a bunch of money, and you figure out how it all works out. Obviously very different, because we're not talking about nearly the caliber player. But I almost think about Milton Williams last year, coming from the Eagles, going to the Patriots, and the impact he made. There were a lot of people when Milton Williams signed the contract of like, how good is this guy? Or was he just surrounded with absolute dudes in Philly? Well, as it turns out, he himself was also an absolute dude. Different position, I totally understand that. I'm just saying, a player who was on a really great defense, who went elsewhere and was still a really, really good impact player. This is more of the like Ollie's bargain outlet signing on the list, but it's a player that I have liked over the course of their career. That's DJ Reader, the defensive tackle. He's been with the Lions for a couple years. Bills fans know him from his time in Houston and then his time in Cincinnati. I just think they need to add some defensive tackles, and I think that they need to add some veterans there because it's a very young room. So they have Ed Oliver, of course, but then it's TJ Sanders and it's Deion Walker, and then it's Dwayne Carter, who missed all of his sophomore year with an injury. And it's Fedarian Mathis, who played some nice snaps for the Bills, but is still not a proven commodity. Like, DJ Reader is a proven player. I don't think this would be crazy expensive, and I think this would be a fun name for this team to go out and kind of have as a rotational piece. Think about it also. Daquan Jones gone, likely. Larry Ogunjobi probably most certainly gone. Now that Sean McDermott's gone, I would imagine Jordan Phillips also probably gone, not coming back. So there are snaps that need to be filled by somebody on the defensive line. And I think DJ Reader is like a smart, savvy, good depth signing. Last name on my list, Caden Ellis, the linebacker from the Atlanta Falcons. The reason he's on the list, I thought he might be a player that sticks around in Atlanta, but the more I started to do research, this is a quote from Ian Cunningham, the Falcons general manager, while at the Combine. He is a free agent. We'll see how that goes. This is according to Josh Kendall of The Athletic. He is a guy that we are evaluating. There are a lot of linebackers in this market, and we really have to look at our cap situation. That is, read between the lines, we are not bringing him back. He probably wants too much money. What is too much money? I do not know the answer to that, but look at his numbers from last year. 107 total tackles, 3.5 sacks, and an interception. He had a forced fumble against the Bills, actually, on Monday Night Football. He's a player who's got experience. He's a leader on that Falcons defense, which at times looked really, really nice. I think for the Bills, they need linebackers. They need to figure out what are they going to do. What happens to Matt Milano? Shaq Thompson, is he back? My guess right now is probably not for either of those guys. Okay, you got Terrell Bernard, you've got Dorian Williams, but if you're going to be switching your defense, what do you need? You need more linebackers. You need a Leo Chenal. You need a player like that, or a player like Caden Ellis, or both of those players. So Caden Ellis is a name to watch. Once again, I've got more on all of these guys right now on our website, WKBW.com. Free agency starts on March 11th. Let me fact check that. I think I'm right. Free agency starts on Wednesday, March 11th, but the legal tampering period begins on Monday, March 9th. So that's going to be the day when we start to hear about deals. The Bills still have a lot of work to do to give themselves spending money, but I think that that's what we will see happen from now until March 9th, and then maybe some of these names that I just told you about will ultimately end up landing in Buffalo. Thanks for watching, everyone. Watch this video.